Everyone, welcome back to What's Cooking with Meg. This is my second episode. I just want to thank everyone for the outpouring of love and support and positive comments for my first video. It's very vulnerable sharing something like that with the world, and it really means a lot that a lot of you watched it, loved it, and hopefully learned something. And you guys better be making fresh pasta, and when you do, please tag me. I would love to see it. And if you're making the dough and you're having some problems, just give me a call, or we can even do a Zoom call or FaceTime, whatever, so I can see and try to troubleshoot. I am by no means an expert in any of this, but I think as a team you work together and you figure out how to make some adjustments going forward. So I am making fresh ricotta today. A lot of you have seen me do it on Instagram before and think that it's really difficult, they could possibly never do it at home, and it's simply not true. I came across the recipe initially on Bon Appetit, which is a great YouTube channel that I've learned a lot from, and I was floored at how easy it was. And it's really only like 4 ingredients, and I think it tastes way, way, way better than any store-bought ricotta that I've ever had, and I think it's a bit cheaper too. So that's what we're making today, and I'm super excited because I'm making lasagna later, and I made some ricotta the other day, but now I'm making more because I want to make real fat layers of cheese. All right, so what you're gonna need for ricotta is really simple. You're gonna get whole milk. Do not do fancy whole milk. I know before my last episode, I was like talking about how I like nice ingredients. When it comes to making ricotta, you do not want ultra pasteurized because the way they heat it up to make it store ready is killing a lot of the bacteria that we need to make ricotta by curdling it. So just buy regular whole milk. This is not a fat-free recipe or healthy by any means, so go for the whole fat. And you'll also need heavy cream. You need distilled white vinegar and salt. And those are really the only ingredients that you need. Most of it you should be able to have on hand, hopefully now. I know milk can be a little hard to find in quarantine times, but I'm pretty sure most of you have that at home. When it comes to equipment, what you'll need, probably most importantly, is cheesecloth. That's what we're draining it into. You can go on Amazon and buy, I think, like 4 yards of it for, I think, $9, and you can reuse it. I actually just washed mine this morning with some warm water and some baking soda. You will also need a thermometer. I have 2. This is a candy thermometer that you sit in the pot, and this is an instant read. I kind of use both just so I can make sure they're both accurate. Because when the milk hits a certain temperature, that's when you have to turn off the heat and get stuff going. So you need a thermometer. But beyond that, most of these things you should really have at home, hopefully. All right, so let's get started. So actually, one thing I forgot to mention is you absolutely do need a good heavy bottom pot because you don't want the milk to burn. So this is my baby. This is my all-clad. I use this for almost everything. But if you have a Dutch oven at home, that will work, or just anything that's a heavy bottom that's sturdy. So we're starting off with 7 cups of whole milk. Again, you don't have to be perfectly precious with the measuring because it really doesn't matter. And if for some reason you can't find heavy cream, you don't have to use it. It's totally fine if you don't. But in this case, that is what I have on hand, and fat is delicious, so that's what we're doing here. 3 cups. And when I normally do this measuring cup, so it's a little shy of 3, that's all I have, which is fine. This one has 4 cups total in it, so the best part is once you get the whole milk, you just toss in the heavy cream. My cat is trying to join, not happening. You just add in the heavy cream to reach 7 cups. Okay. All right, you're just gonna pour it right in. The most important thing about making ricotta is just to go low and slow, because you really don't want scorched milk, just not yummy. Okay, we're gonna put this on the stove. I do about medium to low heat. I don't go crazy, because again, it's not supposed to be a really fast simmer. I'm gonna pop this in here. I think my candy thermometer I got for like $25, so it's not much, which is nice. Okay. And since you're going to wait for the milk to get to 200 degrees, what's really important to do right now is to pour out your white vinegar and your salt, because once that milk reaches temp, you kind of have to move quickly. So make sure this is done ahead of time so you're not having to worry about it later on. So for distilled vinegar, you want to do 5 tablespoons. So anyone that knows me knows I do a lot of shots. So I, of course, have a measuring spoon shot glass because what else would I have? No. No, no, no. Nope. I should have locked them up, then you hear them meow the whole time. 2, 4. Oh, it smells like Easter when I smell distilled white vinegar. It reminds me of dying Easter eggs. All right, so 5 tablespoons of vinegar. And then we're gonna do, this is where I use my scale. You don't have to, but I do measure out my salt. I just think it's a little bit more accurate. So for the salt, it's like 20 grams, which I think is just shy of like a tablespoon and a half. Make sure you tar out your thing so it doesn't weigh your actual glass, your bowl. And we're gonna do, if you don't like a lot of salt, you can do less. It definitely does need it and it helps curdle it. I'm just gonna do 20 today. That's all I'm gonna do. Okay. Now we just have to sit and wait to get the milk up to temp. So we'll check back here in a little bit when it's getting closer to that temperature, and then we'll show the next steps. Okay, so it's been a few minutes. The milk is about 140 degrees, so we're not quite there yet. So while it's on the oven still working, the stove, I figured I would update you guys a little bit on what's been going on in the real estate world due to the virus. So obviously, we've all in the same boat where overnight our whole lives changed. But thankfully, we were kind of, in the real estate world, we were kind of prepared for a shift of some kind. We definitely were not anticipating this kind of shift, presenting in this way. But we kind of knew that the market was going to soften up a little bit. So a lot of us have been ready to go with things adjusting. But the one thing we were not prepared for is the social distancing, which anybody that knows me knows it's impossible for me to not touch and hug people. I'm very affectionate. So this has been torture for me to be alone, not hugging people like I would love to. But it's for the safety of the world, so I'm down to do it. But real estate's very, very tangible, right? You're touching the home, you're seeing the home. I'm seeing my clients. So that's been definitely the biggest adjustment. But thankfully, we live in a world of incredible technology. So we've really been focusing on how do we shift from in-person showings to virtual showings. And that's been wonderful because technology is great, like I said, and we can do virtual walkthroughs. Although they're good, I know some of you are kind of like me, where you have to see with your own eyes for it to feel real and to make a decision like buying a home. In those cases, what we're doing is wearing masks, wearing gloves, wearing booties, and only really having one person in the house at a time. A lot of sellers, what they're doing is keeping all the doors open so you don't have to touch anything. And beyond that, we're just trying to figure out the best way to move forward in transactions while keeping both parties safe and happy and healthy, but still being able to sell. I mean, there's a lot of people out there right now that don't have the luxury of waiting. They have to sell or buy now. And that's why we're here to help you guys and to really guide you through a lot of it. So for buyers, there's just been a lot of questions about mortgages and all of that. What do I do now? I might get laid off. What are the rates? So before all of this happened, the rates were incredibly low. We saw a mini refi boom a few weeks ago, maybe February, before all this happened. But for the most part, rates are still really good. Conventional rates are 3.5, if not a little bit lower. Where we are seeing an increase in rates is really the FHA and the VA loans, which are government backed. And they're a little bit more risky, right? Because the credit score, you can be a little bit lower on those loans, and you're also putting less money down. And in the case of VA, you could put no money down. So those rates are a little bit higher. I spoke to Everett today before I did this video, and he was saying that FHA and VA are about 4.5. So definitely higher than conventional, but historically, 4.5% is still an incredibly low rate. And the benefit is if we can get you in a house now, in 6 months, there's a very good chance the rates could be a lot lower, and then you'd be able to refinance, hopefully, and get yourself a lower rate. So really, it's just a matter of keeping your finger on the pulse of what's going on, talking to an agent like me that is experienced, been in the business for a while, and is anticipating and prepared for a shift like this, and with working with lenders like my guy Everett, who I love, that is always keeping me up to date on everything and explaining it to my clients the best way possible so we can all work together as a team and make the best decision that works for you in these crazy times. And my final thing before I check the milk one more time is a lot of you have reached out to me that already own a home and have had questions about mortgage forbearance. There's been a lot of confusion around that topic, unfortunately, and I think that it's super important that as a homeowner, before you make any decisions, that you reach out to me, reach out to your loan servicer. and ask questions. So forbearance is essentially the mortgage company allowing you to hold off on paying your mortgage for a period of time. We're seeing 3 months, sometimes 4 months. But what's important to understand that at the end of those 3 months, the fourth month, you owe upfront all of your back mortgage. So it's not forgiveness. It's not going to the end of your loan. We have not seen that yet. So it's really important to understand what the agreement is between you and the servicer and what you're responsible for. And I have another video coming out with Zoom, not with cooking, Zoom with my friend Scott and Everett Garnto from Bond Street, where we go into much more depth about this. But those are kind of the big topics that I know a lot of you that I've spoken to that are watching this have asked me. So feel free to go offline with this and call me and we can talk more about it. But I just kind of wanted to touch base about some of the big questions that I know a lot of you have that can be really confusing. We do this every day. So these words and this conversation is something that I'm very used to. And even this has been confusing for me. So if you're at home and you're a little overwhelmed, don't worry. That's why you have people like me and like my partners to make you educated and get you through the process. So enough business. Let's get back to making cheese. So this is my new instant read thermometer and I love it. But all the lefties out there will know that when I go to shove it in to see the temperature, the numbers are upside down. So I do have to use my right hand, unfortunately. Okay, we're almost there. It's at 189 degrees. What's important to do when this is cooking too is just try to give it a stir every now and again. I mean, this is a really great pot, so it heats very evenly. But if your stove's a little uneven, which mine is, or if your pot maybe isn't as heavy bottomed, you want to make sure there's no hot and cold spots and all the milk is being heated evenly. All right, so we're almost there. I'm just going to crank up the heat a little bit. And it's interesting. I've read other recipes online where the temperature isn't 200 degrees. It's like 190, 195. I have just always done 200 degrees and it served me well. But feel free to experiment. I mean, one of the things that I love about cooking is keeping a notebook and just writing down what I did differently, and the results. And then you'll find out which way you like it the most. Especially with ricotta too, when we get to the part where we're straining it, it's really personal preference that the texture and consistency that you like of your ricotta. So make notes, keep track, and that way the next time you make it, you're not trying to remember what you did 3 months ago. You'll remember. Well, while we're waiting for that, I'll show you how I set up my strainer. So you're gonna want a really big pot because there's actually a lot of, I think it's called rennet, I'm pretty sure. That is the, or whey, no, I'm wrong, it's the whey that's left over in there. So you need a kind of a big pot to drain the liquid in. And you want to do a nice small strainer, big strainer rather, to put it in there. So what I do is I drape my cheesecloth over this, push it down, and then I'll even try to tuck some of it in because you don't want the cheesecloth to kind of fall off when you're pouring all that hot milk in there and cream. And then I just kind of drape it around the side. So this is not, it's very close to the bottom of the strainer, so at one point you might have to tilt it so when the cheese is draining, it's not just sitting in the way and not getting drier, which we need. So this is my setup. I've done different pots and bowls and different strainers, but I didn't do the dishes yet, so this is what I have on hand. And it'll be perfect too. This will be good. All right, just make sure it fits nice. Okay, let's check this one more time. I think we should be golden though. Oh yeah, we're good, we're good. Okay, so turn off the heat. Do not forget that. You don't want the milk to keep cooking. Once it hits 200, turn off the heat. I'm actually going to bring this over so it's easier. I'll bring this over here. I don't have a fancy island cook set up yet. Okay. So now that it's off the heat, what you're going to do is get your spatula, stir it up a little bit, and relatively quickly after turning off the heat, drizzle in that white vinegar. And you're gonna see a pretty instant texture change. I know it sounds really gross, but it kind of looks like spoiled milk because it's kind of what we're doing here. It's kind of the purpose of ricotta is you're almost spoiling it, but it tastes really good. So, okay. Give it a nice stir. You'll see an immediate texture difference. So I'm trying not to spill, but I doubt you'll be able to see. But I'm gonna try to take some footage on my phone and then try to splice it in later so you can see the texture. All right, off the heat, let it sit. I do about 15, 20 minutes. And then once that time's up, that's when we can pour it into here and then drain it. And that's only a few more minutes. So I'm talking, this is a really fast recipe. It's really not that difficult. All right, we're gonna pour. Just, you know, careful so you don't burn yourself. Okay. And I said before, sometimes like the pots and the strainer's not sitting high enough up where you can't really drain it without lifting it. So that's what I'm gonna, ooh, I almost just flipped that over. Okay. So you see it doing that. What we're gonna do is just kind of group it up now. Just kind of gather it like a bunch. And you'll see a lot of the liquid come off. Sometimes I think I just do this. I don't think it helps. I just think it keeps me occupied while I'm doing this. I don't think it makes a difference. So just kind of let it sit. You can kind of see, I try to scooch it around too. Like I'll move the cheesecloth so it kind of rolls on itself, just so all of the top part is getting drained and the lower part is getting a break too. So I usually just let mine sit for like, I don't know, like 2-3 minutes. Again, my environment in my kitchen is going to be different than yours. So I think that was probably one of the most important things I learned from watching other cooking videos is you really can't say your oven for 20 minutes because my oven is different than your oven, which is different than someone else's oven. So I try to give clues and visual cues onto when you know when things are ready. And you've all seen ricotta before, I hope, so you'll kind of know the texture. So I'm going to let this sit for like 2 minutes, and then we'll flip it out onto here, and you'll see the final product. Okay, so it's now been drained to the texture that I think I would like for this batch. So what we're going to do is just flip it onto a plate. I usually just put it right into a container. See, like I don't mind a little bit of moisture because I think it could use it. But since I am showing you guys, I usually just put it right into like my storage bowl. But since we're doing this, I'm just going to show you on the plate. It almost looks like a little like omelet. Okay. I made a bit of a mess. That's all right. So that's the final product. It's just really, really beautiful. And it's not a ton. That's why I'm kind of making 2 batches. So I made 2 batches and it's basically a gallon of milk, which is good. So that way if you want to do a double batch. I've done a double batch in one sitting before and I almost didn't like the results. So maybe just do it 2 times in a row, 2 different days. Again, we're all home with nothing to do. And again, this could be relatively kid-friendly, help them stir and all of that. But yeah, this is your homemade ricotta. Eat it plain, eat it with pasta, put it in anything you want. It's absolutely delicious. So thank you for coming to my second episode. I'm excited to do a lot more. I actually have my sourdough starter sitting on the stove. So hopefully once I master that, I'm still a novice, I'll be able to give you guys some tips on how to bake sourdough since almost everywhere is out of yeast. This is a great way to bake without having to have yeast on hand. But that's for a different day. Thanks for coming and cheers. Enjoy.